So welcome to the second lesson here. This time we're going to be looking at stretch and challenge work in relation to the circulatory system. So for me, this lesson is all about applying what you've learned. I've put quite a lot in here. So the plan for me is that you do this for that second hour on Wednesday and then complete anything else you need to finish off on Friday. So this will then be all the work for us over those two lessons. I'll re-upload all the work again for Friday so you've got access to it and you can still use it. Just pick up from where you left off. I've split the lesson into 3 key sections for you guys to work through. So let's have a look at section 1. Okay, so section 1 is all about changes in blood flow throughout the body. So depending on what I'm doing, whether I'm at rest or if I'm doing exercise, where the blood is actually flowing to will change. If I'm at rest, then I might be needing to shunt more blood to organs in the digestive system to aid with digestion and absorbing of those nutrients, and perhaps less so to my skin and muscles, which aren't maybe doing as much work. But when I'm being active and doing exercise, I need to make sure that as much blood is being sent to my muscles and to my skin. And there's an exam question in there that I've given you a little bit of a hint there, but you need to think about why perhaps it needs to go to my muscles and my skin more. Now think about how that might be beneficial, why having more blood to my muscles and skin. So not a great deal there. It's kind of a simple little first section, but consider that other organs in your body might need a consistent level of blood flow. Think about one major organ in your body that no matter what level of activity you're doing, whether you're at rest or you're exercising, might need a constant and consistent amount of blood flow. Again, look at the data in the question and you'll hopefully spot which major organ that is. So that's section 1, quite short, quite simple, but there's a challenging exam question for you guys to put that into practice. So we'll move on to section 2 now. Okay, cool. So section 2 is all about talking about the composition of the blood. And what I'm really referring to here is not the components, but more the kind of the chemistry, what's being held in the blood. Now the blood transports a wide range of materials in the body. It's our major transport network. Immediately you think blood, you think oxygen. Now, of course, yeah, it does carry a lot of oxygen, but it's not just oxygen. The plasma also carries carbon dioxide. We've also got any dissolved digestion products like glucose, amino acids being transported in there. It also transports antibodies and hormones for cell signaling. So it has a huge variety of different materials dissolved in there. But depending on where you're looking in your body and where you're looking in your circulatory system, that composition, that chemistry of the blood will be quite different. So deoxygenated blood that's gone through the capillary network, it's lost all of its oxygen, may well have picked up and absorbed a lot of materials from those cells, those particularly waste products. So it's going to be blood that's coming into your veins will be low in oxygen, but might have lots and lots of carbon dioxide and urea and things like that. The blood that's then gone up to that blood then goes up to the lungs, and obviously gas exchange occurs, and therefore the composition of the blood changes. So at any point in your body, that composition of the blood will change significantly. So I'll put an exam question there. We have to look at this and be very careful on where you're looking and what type of blood vessels they are, and think about where that composition may change. So it's a tricky one, that. So that seals up the majority of our section 2. So let's move on to section 3. So in section 3, this is probably the biggest part here, and it's all about how the circulatory system and activity links to respiration. Now, we've spent a lot of time at the beginning of the year recapping all that bioenergetic stuff. So hopefully you remember that balanced equation for respiration. That's essential because you need to apply that in any kind of context where it comes to respiration. So respiration, remember, is a chemical reaction. It's the breakdown of glucose to release energy. There are 2 types, aerobic and anaerobic. In an aerobic respiration, we completely break down all of that glucose using oxygen to release as much energy as possible. Okay? So when you're doing exercise, you're being active, your body is working harder, I need to supply our muscle cells with much more oxygen and glucose so they can do more respiration and therefore release more energy. And again, that's how I want you to word these things. Make those links, use that word more, because if I'm at rest, I'm still respiring, I still need glucose and oxygen for my resting cells, and I still need to respire. But with activity and exercise, I've got to do more of everything. So put that at least once in your answer and make all those links together. The other advantage of delivering more blood to our muscles when we're exercising is because they can also remove any potential waste products like carbon dioxide or lactic acid. They can also transport away excess heat that has been released through our muscles working harder and that energy being transferred. And that heated blood then can be transported to the skin to aid in energy transfer and cooling down, a concept we'll review when we move on to our paper 3 topic of homeostasis and this process called thermoregulation, controlling our body temperature. So these are all things to consider, and I've got a nice exam question there for you guys to apply this and think about those ideas. There's one other little area I want to look at, and I'm going to cut to it in a second, and that is working out our overall cardiac output. So cardiac output is a measure of how much the volume of blood that is sent out of our heart for a given unit of time, usually per minute. To calculate cardiac output, you've got to be able to look at your stroke volume. So effectively, that's how much blood is pumped out, the volume of blood that's pumped out of the heart per contraction, and multiply that by your heart rate, which is the number of beats per minute. So that way we can then work out the total volume of blood sent out of the heart per minute, per hour, whatever is needed. All right, and there's a little exam question there where you have to better calculate that. One thing to consider is when you've got questions that are kind of linked between circulatory system, exercise and respiration, is how there might be variation from person to person. An athlete and person doesn't do very much exercise will have quite stark differences in their ability, in terms of their cardiac output and the impacts that might have on their exercise rate, heart rate, all this kind of stuff. If you're an athlete and you work really hard and train all the time, your heart will actually get larger, the muscle will get stronger and more powerful. As a result, your stroke volume should increase quite a bit. As a result, your actual heart rate might not be as high. An athlete will often have a much lower resting heart rate compared to somebody who doesn't do very much exercise, because their heart can send more blood per beat than, effectively, want of a better word, a lazy heart. All right, one that's got less muscle in it. So if you don't do enough exercise, your heart has to work a lot harder to send out the same amount of blood, whereas an athlete, one contraction might be equal to 2 of a person who doesn't do much exercise. And there's a little plenary question in there at the end that links to that one. So again, take your time on this section, use everything you've learned and recapped from our circulatory system to answer all these different questions. If you have any issues, send me an email or a message on Show My Homework. Not a problem, we'll help you out. So this is Dr. P signing off. Have a good one. Cheers.